Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon to everyone out there on the internet, whether you're listening to the podcast or watching on YouTube. Once again, it's time for Lancing with Myself, the weekly podcast and internet show where I talk about being a freelance creator and game designer when you're low on spoons and low on cash. This week, I want to talk about looking back at our failures. I've talked before about how you should look back in the video about montages and seeing how far things have come, but that was more about things that come out to a good success and making sure that you understand just how much work was involved so you don't think it was easy. There are also going to be lots of games that don't work. One of my favorite statistics is that Eric Lang, one of the greatest and most prolific designers ever, has a ratio of about 1 to 60. For every 60 games he makes a prototype of, one gets to market. Now, you might not get that kind of ratio because you don't have the kind of presence he has to get things to market. You might have a 100 to 1 kind of ratio. You might have something like that. You might, however, not develop as many games. So your ratio might be smaller. But either way, eventually you're going to have what I have, which is a drawer full of games that aren't finished. Now, some of those games may later be finished. And it's really good to keep good records on them. Before you put a game away, write a note to yourself about where it is, where you thought it was going, and where you got stuck. Otherwise, when you come back, you'll be like, where was this? What was I doing? And you know, there might be something you can save. Sometimes I've pulled out an old game and gone, oh, I know what to do with this now. I found the mechanic for that setting, or I found the setting for this mechanic, or I found the way to unlock that problem that seemed unsolvable. But there are also kind of things you look back and go, this doesn't work at all. What was I doing? And that can be dispiriting. But it's also a really good opportunity to look at what you learned, right? Last episode, we were talking about the why you did things. Sometimes there's a why at the time, and sometimes there's the why that you discover later on. So I was looking at a game that I made really, really quickly. I had this really quick idea because there was someone at a con that I wanted to pitch to. I had this really cool idea. It came to me very clearly. I got a friend to make some cards for me. I went to Officeworks the morning before the con. I printed them out. I sleeved them. And I basically made a game in an hour, you know, with some friends on the internet and with Officeworks. And that was, you know, something that was really exciting. And it taught me so much. It taught me that I could take an idea and get it out really quickly, and I could take it out and pitch it, you know, and that is an invaluable skill. It taught me to just believe in some of my ideas and to take them all the way through, especially if they're small and simple. And it taught me to get through that process, to just go, right, how do I do this? How do I solve this problem as quickly as possible? How do I find someone who can help me make the cards? How do I print them out? How do I sleeve them? How do I get them to the person I want to pitch in, under 12 hours, or from the very first moment to the moment I sat at the table with that person, there was less than 12 hours. And I learned so much during that process. And I also learned a lot through the pitching, and I also learned a lot through developing that game and trying to make it work. I've learned, now that I look back and see what's wrong with it, I learned so much as well, because I'm like, oh, yeah, that isn't really going to give you enough of a game. And I understand that now. And I can see that now. But I also learned how to brainstorm, 300 cards really quickly. And I've got those cards now, and I can look back on them, and I can think, even if it never becomes a game, I learned so much on that. And I have a huge why attached to that. I know why I did it then, because I wanted to get this game idea out, and I was excited. I know what I learned. I know why I did it overall, because it taught me to believe in my games, to make games quickly, to prototype quickly. And I look back at that and I think, yeah, I'm really glad I did that. Didn't really work, didn't make a lot of sense, maybe it was a bad idea, but I learned so much, It's a cliche, but it's true, that there are no failures, there's just learning. And I learned so much from that game, and I learned so much from all the other games in my cupboard. When I look back and go, yeah, there's like 10, 20 games in there that didn't work, that might work, but I look at them and go, oh yeah, that was a good idea. And I'm really glad that I learned how to sit down for a whole day and try different things on that. Or I'm glad that I put that in a box and took it out to a con. I'm glad that I showed that to people and learned how to be brave. I'm glad that I took those games apart and put it into that game. I'm glad that I came up with different ideas. I'm glad that I tried that. I'm glad that I was brave enough to try that. All these things, if you look back over them, they are things that you learned, challenges that you faced, fears that you fought down. Every single one of them is a battle that you fought and won. And there's no failure in that. There's just a list of trophies. You know, we like to look at I have a shelf for all my role-playing game publishers and my board games that have got to publishing, but I go and open that drawer again, and that is a drawer of trophies as well. It's not a drawer of failures. It's sort of like, oh, I learned that, I did that, I conquered that. You know, I learned how to use that piece of software. That was the first game that I used, you know, Photoshop on. That was the first game that made me get card created. That was the first game that I hired an artist on. That was the first game that I took to a con. That was the first game that I showed to a stranger. That was the first game that I tried that mechanic in. That was the first time I ever tried to make a Euro game. Whatever it is, everything is a trophy. Everything is a reason. Everything is a lesson learned. Hang on to your failures, because when you look back at them, you'll see what you learned and how huge that was. And it really is an incredible learning experience. So that's the why that is discovered. There's the why you start, and there's the why that you discover. And Relics was something where the why I started with was, I want to tell this story. I want to make a game that's really personal to me. But the why I discovered at the end was, I learned so much about how to publish and get games to print. And now I think I have an opportunity to do that a lot more than I could have. And so I might be able to get some more games printed, which is all really exciting. Every time you make something, you learn something about yourself and how to make more games. And that's amazing. There are no failures, there's only learning, and that's unlocking that specific why of why you did things is a great way, great reason to look back and understand what you've made. So hang on to those games, even if they don't work. Look back, think about them, and keep them as trophies and remember the why that is revealed. The reason that you made those games is to learn something, achieve something, conquer a fear, move forward. And that's an incredible, valuable thing. So keep making games, because they're always going to have a reason to exist, even if they never make it to a table, to a shop, to another person. We make art for ourselves, and we need to get these things out of us, because that's how we become who we are. Got a little bit deep at the end there, but you get the idea. Keep making games, keep finding out who you are, keep looking back and thinking about what each game taught you on your path. Till next time, I've been Steve D from Tin Star Games. This has been Lancing with myself. Be good, play games, pat dogs, have fun.